Hi, welcome back to Tea Time with Teacup Entrepreneurs. I'm Steph Pellish, your hostess here at Tea Time, and today I am so excited to introduce all of you to one of our Teacup members, Sarah. And Sarah is a tutor who supports young children with learning reading fundamentals. And I'm very excited to learn a little bit more about her journey into entrepreneurship and to have her share with us what it's been like to come into entrepreneurship because I think it's a little different than some of the other stories that we've heard. So, welcome, Sarah. I'm excited to have you here.
Hi, I'm excited to be here.
And so, your business is Storybook Success Tutoring. And so, I would love to hear how did you get into tutoring as your full-time business or as your business? What was the journey like to become an entrepreneur and a business owner for you?
I guess my story is different because I didn't actually set out to be an entrepreneur. I started staying home with my kids because I initially worked at a school that's an hour from home. And I was home for a few months after I had my second child, and I really missed kids and working with them. And at that time, it was just a little bit of after COVID. This started at the year after many kids had lost the last 3 months of school. So I put something out on Facebook, and within the hour or two, all my neighbors had filled up my spots. So I really just started out just like hopping around the neighborhood 2 days a week. And then it just grew from there from referrals and yeah, just referrals from there until we took the opportunity to LLC. It was 2 years this October, so it'll be 3 years this coming October.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So to decide LLC, create a website, and then I started getting people that found me through my website, which was really exciting at first too as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting how everyone's story is so different, but how you were like, I don't know, I think people need help. Let me put something out there. And then you're like, wait, my schedule's full. Can you tell us a little bit about what was that experience? Was it like, well, of course it is, like people need help, or was it more of like, oh wait, I just realized I can do something or what was that like for you?
I was really surprised. I know a lot of parents in just in our neighborhood were feeling overwhelmed with teaching their children from home. And yeah, I was a little bit surprised, but it was a good surprise, you know. I was excited and that first experience was a lot of fun, getting to sit down with the kids and getting to know them in a different way, not necessarily as their neighbor or Henry's mom, but in a way that can help them progress in their reading skills with fun games and activities as well.
Yeah, I love that. I'm curious too, how soon did you know that it was going to be a business or like your thing? Did you think you were going to go back to teaching when COVID kind of slowed down, or what was your plan in that time? Did it change your plan, I guess is a better question.
Um, I think teachers are amazing human beings, but I never felt like being in a classroom teaching all the children at once was something that I excelled at. I was really good at working one-on-one with children.
Hmm.
So when I started to stay home after I had my second son, I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do. And then
To
once
go
I
back.
started to go back to a full classroom and just to that same schedule, I wanted more flexibility with
Yeah.
my kids. Um, so I talked to my husband and, we decided I was going to try and see if I could make this work. And here I am a few years later, and
Love it.
it's great. I love it.
Yeah, so what has been like the best benefit of not going back to the classroom in terms of your family life?
I can create my schedule, like now coming up, I'm working on creating my summer schedule around what works best for my family. So if I want to have 2 or 3 days during the week where I can take my kids out to the pool or the aquarium or the zoo, I know I have those 3 days that we can do that. And for me, that's really important because I really like spending time with them. It's
Yeah, because they're
enjoyable. They're
still
still
little
little.
too, right? So they
Yeah.
want to still spend time with mom
Yeah.
and they're interested in doing things, I'm sure, like going to the aquarium and the zoo and oh, that's fun. And then what about just in terms of like your career, like how or like how has it impacted you to work with a child one-on-one versus in a classroom? Like what was that transition? You knew that the classroom wasn't the right fit, but that doesn't always mean that the next thing is going to be the right fit,
Right. We all know how
unfortunately.
that feels, unfortunately. Um, so I started to dig deeper after the second year's tutoring into why there were so many families and kids that needed help with tutoring and learned through a variety of different ways that we just had ignored a huge body of research for a very long time about how most kids need what they need in order to read and be successful readers. And once I learned that and I understood what kids needed, and I took additional courses, I took two courses through Charitable Read Foundation in order to be trained in Orton Gillingham. I started to see more and more of what was missing for a lot of my students that I was working with, and just doing a few things, how just incorporating a few different things was what helped them really take off. Making sure I filled in some holes with their phonics and confidence, and they could really take off.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, teachers are such amazing people with what they do, but there's so much that needs to go into managing and running a classroom. And realistically, there's only so much you can do inside of a reading class for however long, 45 minutes. And if you're talking about young learners, their attention is not that long. And so to then have to individualize it for everyone, I'm sure it can be really challenging. So you kind of took this opportunity to find ways to make it more fun and individual. What, what, how do you do that? Like, how do you know for a kid what they need or what is going to inspire them to be a more invested learner?
I really start with an assessment just to see where those gaps are, where they're doing really well. And what I always say to them is, hey, we're just gonna sit here and talk about you're doing really, really great as a learner and what maybe we need to work on. So I'm not working on things that you don't need work on, and we can help you grow as a reader. I take that assessment, I create a plan that I map out with the parents, I share with them, and then we take that plan and we move forward. So if a student needs to start with something like digraphs, I start giving them lessons on SH, TH, CH, and then I incorporate games. I have a lot of games that kids love and look forward to and actually ask to play. Like there's a game Squishyland, Kangaroo Cravings, and the funny thing is, it's Cravings is about spelling and movement. Squishyland has a bunch of different things. One is breaking apart two-syllable words, but they love it because one, they always beat me, and they think that's hilarious. And two, it's a
Building
game,
that
it's
young
fun.
confidence. Yeah.
Always beat me. Um, and it's a game and it's fun. I can make their learning enjoyable and
Yeah.
build that confidence back up because that it is a real big hit to a child's self-confidence when they struggle with reading.
Yeah, because you really focus on like the young kids, the fundamentals of reading, right? So what's the age or like the development of where you're usually supporting a child?
So really I work with kids pre-K through fifth grade, but my specialty is phonics. And what sorry. What you find is even with the kids in fourth or fifth grade, the reason they're struggling in comprehension and the parents tell me, oh, they really need help comprehending is because they don't understand the passage. So when we get back to the phonics and what skills are missing, then they can read the passage no problem. They know exactly what it's about. The problem isn't so much they don't understand it, it's that they're having difficulty reading it and it's taking so long to get through the passage that they don't remember what they read.
Yeah, right. Or it's so difficult that they're focusing on one word at a time and not the concept, I would assume,
Yeah.
the bigger picture of it. I know, like I worked in early intervention as an OT for a long time, and part of what I did was I worked with the kids, but a lot of it was about parent education and a lot of it was giving parents strategies and tools. Is that something that you also do, or is it really more one-on-one with the kids or a combination?
It's a combination for me because a lot of parents want to help, but they don't know what to do. And then they get pushback from their kids, which is hard because maybe mom and dad are trying to give them messages too hard, or there's that dynamic. And it's my kids too. The
Yeah.
kids are always harder on their parents, really. If you get down to it, that's it.
It's
So
dinner
what I
time, so
do,
everyone's a little
yes,
more stressed. They've already
yeah.
been at school all day. Yes.
So I just try to tell the parents exactly what we worked on. With my kids that I work with in a school, a private school, I send a text message and a picture of like the words we worked on. But when I'm working with someone and their child in their home, I quick go over what we worked on. And I try to give them a reasoning behind it and then a passage that we've already read so they can practice. So it's very low frustration level for both the parents and the children. And sometimes parents choose to sit with us, and I always say, it's open door. I'm going to do the same thing
Yeah.
if you're sitting here than if you're not. So, and then that helps too, where they'll say, "Oh, I didn't know that," or "I struggled reading too. This is really great." So, I try really to bring the two together to answer your question.
No, that's interesting. I'm curious to know, like, do you get a lot of parents that say, I struggled with reading, and so they do, like they learn something new and a new strategy, maybe even for themselves, but like to teach their kids that they wouldn't have otherwise known.
Well, yeah, because people in our age range did not learn phonics. And to kind of go back a little bit to what I was saying before, when I went to college, no one taught me anything about phonics. Um, it
So
was
you
not
didn't have
like really,
phonics in elementary school. Okay.
I didn't get phonics in elementary school. And when I went to college for teaching elementary, it was not a class that was taught.
Okay.
And that's why so many teachers right now are in the process of learning because
Interesting. See,
it wasn't.
we had phonics growing up. I think we had phonics until third grade is when I think we stopped having our phonics book. And so that's interesting to know that it didn't exist then because I thought it was something that was coming back because it was there and then taken away and now they're bringing it back again. Because it's so funny because as I talk to you and we'll dive in a little bit about your course, but I went through your course because I have a new reader, an emerging reader, and she came home last week and she's like, "Well, we're learning digraphs at school." And I was like, "The only reason I know that is because I learned it from Sarah." But, and I knew what they were, I just didn't know what they were called. But I remember like we had a phonics book and we had a spelling book. Like those were two, and we had a reading book. Like those were all separate subjects in school. So it's interesting that they are now, like teachers are now having to learn that because they didn't have that in their own education. Oh,
No, and now that like listening to you talk, did you go to private school growing up?
mhm.
And there's the difference. I'm so surprised to hear you say that. It was definitely phonics was something that was taught before our time, right? Very heavily taught, and then it kind of went away, came back, went to balanced literacy, then we went back to now we're going back to phonics. But I do think a lot of the private schools held on to it, which was great because it was obviously necessary.
Yeah.
Whereas where the public schools kind of went away from it, to no one's fault. It was just kind of that
Well,
what was,
it goes in
yeah,
waves, right? Like even
yeah.
with my older three kids, now my youngest is in kindergarten, but my older three kids, they did not have as strong of phonics review that she has. And we are a math family. Give us math and we all do well. I love to read. I'm a fast reader. I love to read, but when it comes to like reading and writing. That was never my strength. Now, like I've practiced it and I've gotten better at it. But for my kids, they still struggle to put their words into writing. And so I'm interested to see what happens with my youngest now that there's more of a little bit of a focus on her phonics. I mean, her reading, I remember when my kids were in kindergarten, all of them, like after Christmas in their kindergarten year, it was like, oh, they're reading. Like it was no longer like we're picking out a word and set, like they were reading. And again, like she's younger by 5 years. So I haven't done this in 5 years in terms of relearning, but her reading skills are like just so much further than I remember the other kids. But we've been reading every single night to her since she was born because I had at that time young kids. So we were reading at night inconsistently, but with her, she wanted a book every single night. Whereas my other kids, it was like, maybe a book tonight. It's bedtime. Like, there are too many of you. We can't agree on a book. Go to bed. And I really see the difference with her. Like, even the words that she understands and the vocabulary that she has sometimes, or like the way that she asked me a question the other day. Um, like, Mom, what does that word mean? And I was like, oh, it, I forget what the word was, but just like her comprehension of language is much higher than the other kids. And they all have great comprehension. But, I think we talk about the importance of reading with our kids, but then the reality of having the time, having the energy at the end of the night to sit and like sit in their bed. Like I know, again, with my older kids, like I was done at the end of the night. I wanted to go to bed. And so to read a book to them and they're fighting, how do you create some opportunities, maybe in your house or some suggestions for some of your clients? Like, to maybe it doesn't always have to be at nighttime we're reading a book. Like, what are some of the games or some of the ideas that you share with families that I could have used probably 10 years ago?
Well, I think like you said, we get into that almost thought that because that's what we're taught, right? You go to the pediatrician, how many nights a week are you reading to your kid? It's not really, no one says to you, actually, if nighttime is really hard for you, reading can be at breakfast. Um, when the kids come home from school, whatever time is best for you and your family, um, is great. Another thing, I totally lost track of what I was gonna say. What was your question again?
That's okay. Yeah. So, what are some activities or some tips that you have for families that are overwhelmed because they think they have to read all the books at bedtime?
So one thing was it doesn't always have to be right night. It can be any time during the day. The other thing is some nights it can just be one book, right? Pick that one go-to short book if you're all exhausted. Um
We had rules like,
right.
is it a short book night? And those were like the Sandra Boynton books. Or can we like read any book that you choose? Because she had some books that I just dread reading. I'm like, oh, this book again? Okay, but she loves them, right? And that's the whole point that she loves it. But getting caught up in it's one more thing to do at night.
Yeah, and that's the hard part, isn't it? But I mean, really, it can be that one short book. It could be that one short book. It could be maybe you get some read to me books that are those books that have I get like a set of six, and they each have a little shape on them, and then the child hits the shape, and you turn the page, and it reads the story to them, and
Yeah,
you can sit there if you're really tired, and they get to hit the button, and they get to hear a nice story. If your throat hurts, you're all enjoying a book, and it's
right.
not necessarily like. And another thing I tell parents too, sometimes if I'm really tired, my kids are really into listening to stories. So I'll put like a Tony on or an Audible, and we'll just lay in bed and listen to a
Yeah,
book. I mean, I feel like just giving yourself the grace that it's all reading and that, we're all exhausted and tired by the end of the day. Also, like you said, there's a ton of games. If your child's in that stage where you're trying to get them to read to you as well. Like I said, I have Squishy Land, I have Kangaroo Cravings. On my website too, if people sign up for my newsletter, they automatically get all of my favorite games and materials, but one favorite one is called Blah Blah Blah, and it's just like Uno, right? That's like
Love it.
just like Uno, except with words. So if you have a word like jet, it'll have like J, E, and T in a bubble, and then you have to, if there's a card that has a J, E, or T, you can put it on top. And there's like Uno, like cards where you have to draw four, or draw two, or reverse, and I mean, kids
Cute.
love it.
Yeah.
They have a great time. So there's a lot of games that you can do too if you're kind of like your kid is saying, I don't want to do this right now.
Well, and that's where games are so helpful too, because not only are they learning the words, obviously, which is the goal, but there's sequencing that's happening. There's following the directions, there's learning what comes first, what comes next, what comes last. And so all of those things hidden, not even like in the reading aspect or like the figuring out the sounds aspect, but it's hidden in there that do help you read and figure out comprehension and direction following, all of those other things that aren't specifically like looking at the word, knowing what it says, and then comprehending it and using it. So I also love to use games because one, it makes it much more interesting for us, but it's much more engaging for the kids too. They're like, oh, can I beat Miss Sarah? Can I beat Miss Steph? Like, is she any good at this game? Because I'm gonna take her down.
I always lose. And I had a girl one time, I never won. I mean, sometimes I try to, I know you're not supposed to do that. For my point, I want to just have fun with me. One time I won, and she's like, Miss Sarah, I let you win because you never get to win. I was like, you're right. I really appreciate it. They just make me laugh so much.
Love
But yeah,
it.
the games are great. Like you said, it's more than one skill too that they're getting there.
Yeah, and so I know like one of the ways that you've kind of helped families too is by creating an online course. So can you tell us like what inspired you to want to make an online course? Because that's no easy pursuit.
So the thing that was the reason I started online course is because I told you before, a lot of parents just weren't taught phonics and they're
Mhm.
frustrated. And a lot of parents who were really hard on themselves, like, hey, whoa, you can learn phonics, and I went to all this schooling, I took extra classes, and I read, like, this is my thing. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to create a course to help those parents?
Yeah.
And I started with the younger group because I had so much experience teaching the very young ones how to read. Um, so I started with what I had as far as materials that were non were, screens free ways to teach your kids how to read. And so the course really takes parents through the basics, how to teach letters and letter sounds, games you can play, and how to teach those beginning blending skills. One of the biggest things that parents take away, though, is that for years and years, we were always told, a letter a week, or, um, yeah, really a letter a week, or go one letter at a time and take
Yeah.
your time. And really, that's not what you need to do because some letters are really easy to learn and others are not.
Yes.
So, I really tell parents to start with M, A, S, T, and P because that's those you can make a ton of words with those. You can do a lot of spelling. And then I teach parents to go through the enhanced alphabet cycle, which is when you can read more about it. But the first thing that you teach kids is you start with the letters in their name.
Yeah.
So right now in my kitchen, I have my son's letters in his name, and we can just go over that because it's very personal to them.
Yeah. Yeah. They love writing their name, knowing their name. It does. It individualizes. It makes it theirs. And especially at those young ages, like they want everything to be theirs and about them. It's very egoic appropriately. I love that. Yes. So when somebody, I think that's so amazing because I think, you know, even for those of us who were taught phonics in school, like we're not teachers. And so I have a little bit more experience because as an OT, I worked with kids, so I know how to teach kids. But most parents, from my experience, don't then know how to teach that to their children. So just because they know something, they don't know how to apply it or they don't know how to teach it. And so I love that this course really like helps parents learn some of the terminology, like digraphs, but also helps give them a way to put it in front of them. Because I know for me, like I was on Pinterest, how to do all of the things, right? That's where I was looking for activities. That's where I was sharing activities as an OT because, I would say, oh, set up a sensory bin. And a family would be like, tell me exactly how. Like, you just get a bin and you put something in there that feels a certain way. But until you have done one or two or a million, it can feel overwhelming. And so your course really breaks it down really nicely and it gives it one chunk, one piece at a time so that it just gives you that foundation. And I think so many parents are looking for that confidence in helping their kids. That's not just here's your iPad, use ABC Mouse, and hopefully you learn how to read using this app, right? Like they do want to get engaged, they do want to be involved in the learning, but they just don't have the tools or the training. And so I think it's great what you're doing. And then you have a new component with the course with your,
Yes. Sorry.
that's okay. So
I
can you
do.
tell me?
So some of the feedback I receive from parents that have already done my course is they love it, but they get to that first step where it's like, okay, these are the things that you should have. And then they pause, like, wait, I don't have all of these things.
Yeah.
So I created a bin with the things that you just need to help get started. And some of these things are very simple. A whiteboard, marker, and eraser, because you can do so much with whiteboards. We
Yes.
don't even know. A set of like a set of magnetic letters that you can use too are always really great. I have Play-Doh in there too. And I have like a little fun aspect for the oops, a little fun aspect for the kids is a little object to start building your bins with your beginning sounds. So we have a bear and I would put him in my bee bin. And kids love these. My son, they're doing M, and he pulled my M bin out. And we were just pulling out all of the things that start with the sound. And just it's just very simple. Sorry, I'm like digressing. I also have just this nice kit that goes in there too to show you how to use it. Like you said, parents really love that guidance. And when everything's grouped together, you can just sit down, pull things out, and it's very low prep. The biggest thing between my course and my bin, I want it to be simple, something you can pull out, set up in a few minutes, and be done in 10 to 15 minutes and still
Yeah.
feel like you guys engaged that day and learned
No, I
something.
think that's so important. And I think, just the fact that you've got it ready to go, that someone can say, I want to do this thing. It can get you stuck on day one when you're like, well, I don't have every piece that I need, so I'm not going to start. And so having something like that, again, going back to when my three were all little at the same time, like putting stuff together, there were days where I could be creative and I was more motivated. And then there were days where I was like, well, I got five of the letters done, so I guess we're not going to do the rest of them. Like, good luck, the other 21 letters. And so having that, I think, is such a great support for families. I think families are really going to appreciate having those. If somebody wanted to buy one or find out more about your course, where could they go to
So
do that?
right now, oh sorry, in my website, you pop right when you go to my website, there's all my services, and right at the top is a link for more information about my 21 days. Even though the title is 21 days, you do have about, I think it's a total of 101 days to access the course. This is just a way to kind of show you you can get this done in 3 weeks. And when you start the course, you automatically get an email every day, kind of breaking down the course for you so that it gives you like little bite-sized pieces every day that you can accomplish so you don't feel like you have to sit down and do everything at once.
And it,
And then, sorry. And then for the bin right now, they're only local, but if someone would want one and reach out, I definitely could figure something out so that I can get that information to you.
Yeah, and I'll share all the links in the show notes and everything so someone can get to your website, reach out to you if they have any questions or need anything. I'm curious to know, so you had a passion, you had a desire to help kids, to help families, and ended up with a business. What advice might you have for someone else who kind of ends up with a business unexpectedly, perhaps?
For me, the biggest thing was because I don't have that business background. I come from like that teacher background. I'm very trusting, which is good, and parents appreciate that. But the biggest thing I would say is make sure um, you have a contract that outlines what your expectations are for that lesson so that when you're coming in, parents know that you take this time very seriously and they understand what to expect. And also, you know how to pay you because if you don't come in taking your very seriously, people are like, oh, I'll pay you next week. And you're like, oh, sure, So really coming in with
And then
that,
it's a month later and you're
yeah,
like, well, are you paying me now? Or, yeah, been there.
yeah, right. So having a contract and really laying it out, like, okay, you can pay me by Venmo, it's due at this time, and if you don't, I don't come back until you pay, and then I'll come back. So just
Yeah.
getting, and people don't, you feel rude, but people actually really respect that more than being really wishy-washy, is what I've learned.
Yeah. Well, when you have those boundaries, when you have that structure in place, it shows that you're a business and that you're taking it seriously and that it's not just something that you're doing from the goodness of your heart, wanting to help all of the children in your neighborhood for free, that you are also creating a livelihood and you're supporting your family and all of these other things. And so, yeah, I think that's great advice is to have some boundaries, have a contract when and if it makes sense in your business to have that, but knowing that, I guess my question for you right now is like, how did you know it was time to put that contract in? Was there something that kind of pushed it? Was that when you created the LLC that you put the contract in, or you just kind of learned, I'll say the hard way or along the way?
I definitely learned, I feel like I learned the hard way. I had joined a group prior to Teacup that was just some women getting together and talking about their business, not some women getting together and talking about their businesses. And that came up in conversation. I was like, oh, that hadn't occurred to me. And
Yeah.
that comes from that teacher background. And then when I started having people fill it out, it was actually really helpful because people understood if they were late for a session, they still had to pay the full price because I had someone coming in right afterwards.
Yeah.
And since I laid that out, when parents would come in late, they're like, I get it, I understand, but if you could work with them for that 20 minutes that we have, great. And that's kind of, if people definitely showed a lot more respect
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah. Well, and it lays it out there that you're not just, oh, well, you're here. Well, now your half an hour starts whenever you show up. It's no, it was from here to here and my schedule's set up. Like, yeah. What what did so you talked about this group of women that you kind of found. What made you look for other, I'm assuming they were business owners that you were meeting with, but like what made you look for that kind of community or that kind of group or group like Teacup?
So that was kind of fell into my lap. It was another mom that I was in a mom's group with that had mentioned it to me. Um, and I guess I didn't know I was looking for some help. And I definitely was.
Yeah.
But then it kind of fizzed out. And then when I saw your post about teacup, I was like, a lot of women, I don't know. But I went and it was really helpful. And again, we are having these conversations about here's some things that to someone that has a business background, be like, oh yeah, you should know this. But I didn't, and I'm still learning, and it's just helpful for me to
Yeah.
learn in
Well,
an atmosphere where I'm not judged, you
yeah.
know.
And that's where we don't know what we don't know, right? And the smartest thing that we can know is that we don't know. And so asking questions and finding a space where we can ask questions, that is one of the things about Teacup that I think makes it so special, but that is so important to me that women can show up and ask any question, even business or not, but they're asking questions. One, because we're asking good questions and we want to encourage them to ask better questions because that's when we get better answers. But also, like, ask the question because you don't know. And it's safe to not know because how would you know? If you've never owned a tutoring business before and you've never had somebody like steal time and money from you, how would you know that a contract is going to make it easier? And that's where getting into a room with other women who have done similar things can say, oh, listen, if you have a contract, it's so much easier because now you don't have to worry about if people are late or how people pay, like all of those things. But again, like if you've never done it, how would you know? And even if you did it one way and somebody does it another way, like you don't know what you don't know. And you don't know until you try, or you know that it's not the right thing. And so you pivot and try something new. But yeah, I love that. If somebody was looking to start their own business, they were like, all right, I have this passion. I'm listening to Sarah talk about how she just kind of like figured it out along the way. Do you have advice for them to like take that first leap? To like put that post out on Facebook saying, hey, neighbors?
I think you just have to be at a point where you're like, not just not to, just don't care. Like, because the people that you expect to like be liking your posts or I don't know, just be the people that you expect that will encourage you are busy and they're not necessarily, they're not, they're not in your life. They don't know
Yeah.
what you're doing. So don't expect validation from other people. If you have something you want to do it and put yourself out there. And the worst thing that could happen is nothing, really. I mean,
I
and
love
then
that
you try
because
again.
no, I absolutely love that advice because I think it's so simple but so important of like put it out there without an expectation of this is the end all be all. And when you did that, you sold out, right? Like that's incredible. And you're right, like you think that it's going to be your friends that are going to be like, this is amazing. Let me like buy your thing. But your friends aren't your best clients. It's the people that you don't know or who are silently watching you or who haven't met you yet, they are your best clients. And so when you continue to show up and share and they get to see, but we think it's going to be like our friends and our neighbor and our all the people that we think need this service or should be supporting us. And it's not. And that's where Teacup for me was very interesting at the beginning of like, I put this thing out there and I was like, hey, friends, like, where are you all? And again, it started meeting with friends. But then as it grew, I was like, hey, friends. And they were all like, that's great for you, Steph. I was like, but now all of these strangers who have become friends found me because I continued to put it out there. And so I think that's amazing advice for someone new is just to put it out there and see what happens. And don't expect it to be a certain person because it probably won't be.
No, it really won't be. Um, I will say though, my one of my cousins, a very close cousins, is an entrepreneur herself, and when she saw me, try and step into my own, she did call me and she said something that I always try to hold on to, and that's just know your worth too.
Yeah,
Like, know your worth and stay solid at what you're charging because the people that will appreciate what you do will pay that without blinking an eye, you know.
absolutely. Right. Your best clients understand your value and they're wanting to invest in someone like you for what you have to offer. I love that. I'm thinking like, do I want to ask one more question about the kids? I think I do. If you could give parents some advice on how to help their kids so that every kid could have a little bit more fun reading, what would that advice be? And like, what do you think that would do in the world if kids enjoyed reading just a little bit more, or if it was just a little bit easier for them? That was a lot in one question, so feel
So to
free to.
answer your first question, for parents, I think the biggest thing is to teach parents that it does not have to be this stressful thing where you sit down and you tie your kid to a chair, not tie, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Force them to sit down and like do a workbook
sit down
page
after dinner
or
time and it needs to be
yeah,
20
yeah,
minutes.
it needs to be this thing.
Yeah.
Just let it be what it is. Let it be playing a game, reading the short passage the teacher brought home, um, talking about the letters in a book that you're reading or the vocabulary, like you said. So many kids learn. It doesn't have to be something so stressful. And I feel like um, if more kids enjoyed reading, it would really help self-esteem throughout. Because what you see and what I saw in my teaching career teaching fifth graders is kids that came to me still reading at a lower reading level, they were done by fifth grade. They're just done, you know, they had behaviors, they had things they didn't want to do anything. And, you know, if you think about it, that's frustrating for kids and it's hard for them. So if we can get up to a point where we're teaching kids how to read in a way that's fun and enjoyable, and they get to fifth grade and they have those skills, they're just going to be so much more confident.
I love that. And I'm going to end on that note because that's a good one. And it's a good one for all the entrepreneurs out there too. Like that self-esteem, that confidence is so important. And so I just greatly appreciate this conversation today and what you're doing in the world for these kids, because there are many times where you won't know the impact that you're having on them, but you're definitely creating an impact. And what they do with that confidence down the line is really exciting and a great thing that you're doing. So thank you for that. I love that you're a part of our teacup community as well. And so we will share all the ways to get in touch with Sarah, find out more about Storybook Success Tutoring. But thank you, Sarah, so much for joining us today on Tea Time with Teacup Entrepreneurs.
Thanks for having me.